210 million people worldwide suffer from internet addiction. That's roughly the population of Brazil. The average person spends over 2.5 hours a day on social media. That's about 17 hours a week, or nearly 37 entire days a year, just scrolling, liking, and refreshing. And that's just 2.5 hours a day. Most people, especially teens, use it far more. And the thing is, most of us don't even realize it's happening. Anna Lembke, in her amazing book, Dopamine Nation, writes, "The smartphone is the modern-day hypodermic needle, delivering digital dopamine 24/7 for a wired generation." Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about why are teens more susceptible to social media addiction? What is it about teens or children that make them more prone to get hooked on social media? So, without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're reading an article from Jefferson Health on the addictiveness of social media, how teens get hooked. So why are teens more susceptible to the addictive features of social media, and how parents and guardians can help adolescents develop a healthy relationship with social media? It's no surprise that social media has captivated the minds and attention of America's adolescent population. This has become even more pronounced during the pandemic, when the social lives of teens have become mostly digital. But adolescence is the second biggest period of brain development and growth, and because of that, social media can have a big impact on the adolescent brain. We know that it takes until about the age of 25, roughly, maybe even late 20s, for the brain to fully develop. So during these years, while the brain is developing, and you have something that is interacting with the brain for hours and hours and hours a day, this can be incorporated into the development of the brain. It's like it becomes a part of you. And it could be why it's so painful to have it taken away from you, or having to keep it in another room to control the access. A recent study published in the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, revealed that teens who use social media more than 3 hours per day might be at heightened risk for mental health problems. Since the pandemic, there has been an uptick in depression and anxiety among teens, specifically low self-esteem, disordered eating, body image issues, and suicidal thoughts. Yeah, during the pandemic, this was a time when teens and adults, all of us, were locked down and put in a situation to where the only real access we had to the world was through social media. This could be a type of alternate reality where we get so caught up in social media where everyone's fake, everyone puts up a thing, puts up a front. And so it gives this kind of an illusion of what reality is. And because of the way social media works, when you're looking at a certain type of content over and over, it becomes like an echo chamber. So if someone starts to look at depressing images or videos or things that are disturbing, it'll start showing more and more of that type of content. So you can really kind of dig a hole for yourself if you're starting to go down a rabbit hole that isn't beneficial. Social media is designed to hook our brains, and teens are especially susceptible to its addictiveness, says Nancy DeAngelis, CRNP, Director of Behavioral Health, Jefferson Health, Abington. Being aware of the addictiveness of social media and how to help your teen struggle with its effects is crucial. Making your kids aware of the potential harm, limiting their access. Because their brains aren't fully developed, they lack self-restraint, so it's the job of the parent to limit the access. How social media works on the brain. Studies have shown that social media has a powerful effect on the brain, and it can create stimulating effects similar to addiction. Social media platforms drive surges of dopamine to the brain to keep consumers coming back over and over again. The shares, likes, and comments on these platforms trigger the brain's reward center, resulting in a high similar to the ones people feel when gambling or using drugs. Once the brain experiences these rushes of dopamine and pleasure, the high from social media becomes harder and harder for anyone to resist, creating patterns of addictive behavior. Why teens are particularly vulnerable. Adolescence is the second biggest period of growth in the brain. Because teens' brains and social skills are rapidly developing, they are particularly susceptible to the addictiveness of social media. Part of this is the fact that social media is social, and given that this is the number one drive for humans, which is relationships and being accepted, it all ties in. So if you're using social media, you're getting your social aspect, but they're designed to be addictive. This is a dangerous combination. The overuse of social media can actually rewire a young child or teen's brain to constantly seek out immediate gratification, leading to obsessive compulsive and addictive behaviors, says DeAngelis. This is what can make mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, ADHD, and body dysmorphia worse. Adolescents who use social media from a very young age are more in danger of developing these disorders and future addictive behaviors. DeAngelis says it's extremely important that parents and guardians of young children and teens pay attention to the symptoms of these mental health disorders and take note if their child is spending too much time on their screen or begins to lie about their internet use. So this is part of any addiction, where you're spending too much time using it or consuming it, and you start doing it in isolation. And it kind of creates this vicious circle because you're isolating yourself, which takes away from your relationships, which is what we need. And a lot of times, if we lack those relationships, this is how we turn to different substances and behaviors to fill that gap. The younger they are, the more susceptible, because the younger we are, the more our brains are absorbing everything in our environment, all of our sensations and our actions. How parents and guardians can help. Fortunately, parents and guardians who notice these effects on their children can take several measures to help them develop a healthy relationship with social media instead. Try these strategies. So here they're going to show us how your child can have a more healthy relationship with social media. But I don't recommend you give your child a phone or anything until at least the age of 16, regardless of when they reach puberty. Because although their body reaches puberty, it doesn't mean their mind has reached puberty. And so just follow basically the rules of marriage and the religion. Just because you reach puberty doesn't mean that you're mentally ready or physically ready. And in this case, physically ready, meaning your brain. So don't let your kids have phones or devices on their own. Make sure you limit it to at most maybe an hour a day, or at least have them with you when they're on the internet, but no social media. This is the part where the likes and the comments and all the things can become an issue. Help your teen develop effective coping mechanisms and strategies to manage their stress, anxiety, frustration, or sadness. This can include exercise, team sports, or talk therapy. Try to get them outside to experience nature if possible. Yeah, this will keep the dopamine balance because you're doing things that are natural to our experience. Going for walks, interacting with other individuals. These are things that we are supposed to create dopamine for, not social media, sugar, and all these other things that are created to have addictive qualities. It takes you kind of over the top. Your dopamine levels are artificially heightened, and that's where the addiction can happen. Work with your teen to manage their screen time. Communicate with them and agree on healthy boundaries to help them reorient their relationship with social media from escapism and distraction to a tool for enjoyment or information. Encourage and empower them to practice these boundaries on their own with your support. A lot of addiction comes from trauma. And it doesn't have to be trauma where someone's just getting beat all in a corner somewhere or screamed at constantly. One of the most common forms of trauma is neglect, abandonment. Parents being home with their children, but not mentally, emotionally, or psychologically present. This can actually be more devastating than physical abuse. So we have to keep that in mind. Make sure we're not on our phone. Make sure if our child comes up to us with a question, we don't tell them to hold on a second or talk to them while we're on our phone. We have to be examples of the behavior we're trying to implement in our children, because everything they do, they learn from us. Children aren't born the way that they present themselves today, the way you see them. They've learned this from you, from their environment, from other kids. And so this is why it's important to keep them from social media at a young age, because they'll start learning who they are through social media, which is just full of people who are not being themselves. Agree on long-term goals and strategies to help your teen sustain a healthy relationship with social media. Find the type of support that works for your teen, time with friends, talking to a loved one, or therapy, and encourage them to seek out the support the next time they experience negative emotions, feel overwhelmed, or are preoccupied as a result of social media. So this is part of the cycle. You get a cue, which could be a sad feeling or being bored. You then crave the thing that will remove that feeling, and then you indulge in that thing, which in this case is social media. And that just strengthens the relationship between feel bad, go on social media, makes you feel good, and it just gets strengthened the more you do it. If your teen is struggling with their mental or physical health or the challenges of everyday life, talk to their primary care provider for resources to help. And then you have more about mental health care. Our compassionate expert mental or behavioral health specialists are here for you. So here, Jefferson Health is telling you that they have therapy for your child if needed. So this article is about why children are more susceptible to social media addiction. And a big part of that is that it's something they're interacting with while their brain is still developing. It becomes their environment, because we know our brain develops according to our experiences and our environment. So if all of those experiences and that environment is social media, it then dictates how the brain is developed and how that child will live their life. A good strategy is to have a scroll zone where you put the phone in the kitchen or keep it in the living room, but you don't keep it on your person. And if you have a teen that's already addicted to their phone, have them use it only in this scroll zone so that you don't just have it in your lap where you just pick it up every time you get bored. Because when it comes to addiction, it kind of puts us on autopilot because we've built that strong association. Like people give the example of Pavlov's dog, where he introduces a piece of steak to his dog, it salivates, he gives it the steak, eats the steak, and then he introduces the sound of a bell when introducing the steak. And he does that over and over until he doesn't even need the steak. He can just ring the bell and the dog will salivate. This is how addiction works. This is how we end up on autopilot. So for us, the cue would be boredom. Maybe you're stressed, and then our brain says, hey, this doesn't feel good. Let's go on social media. That helped us last time, helped distract us and make us feel better. And so we go on social media, and then the more we do it, the stronger it becomes, just like Pavlov's dog. So hopefully this has been beneficial. Be sure to share with others. Don't know if YouTube's going to put my videos out in front of you. Hope it's been beneficial. Leave a comment below if you struggle with social media, or if you have children that struggle with social media, or if you're a teen that struggles with social media. Let me know in the comments what you're going through, or certain tactics or things that may have helped you. We're all here to learn from each other. And yeah, that's about it. So until next time, may Allah reward you for being curious, and keep tying your camel. Assalamu alaikum.